Hey everyone, welcome back to Knights of the Nerds Table. I'm your host EJ, and guys, today you're in for a little treat. This will be the very first Knights video game review, and who better to review than Sega's long-term mascot, Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic Team just put out their first mainline game in 5 years, Sonic Frontiers. Before we talk about the review, let's get into some background information about this game. So if you are familiar with the Sonic video game franchise, you know how much this game means to Sonic fans. Modern Sonic has had its ups and downs in the 2010s, kind of like the loop-de-loops he goes on. Games like Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations were huge hits with critics and fans alike, but the last few entries into the series were missteps. They tried to spin off video games from their Cartoon Network series Sonic Boom, but those games were some of the biggest critical failures for Sonic since Sonic 06. 2017 Sonic Forces was probably the most uninspired Sonic game I have played in a while. So after that game didn't impress fans or critics, Sega began to rethink the Sonic franchise. They had their doubters, with many calling for the Blue Blur to finally hang up his shoes and retire. During this time period from 2017 to present, a lot changed for the plucky little hedgehog. Paramount put out 2 successful Sonic spin-off movies, and with that, our boy in blue was back in business. But where was his main attraction? Sonic can be many things, but he is mainly a video game character. He needs a game that truly slaps to bring him into a new era. Fans were hoping for something special for the 30th anniversary of the Hedgehog in 2021. During the live stream for the anniversary, Sega showed a glimpse of what that game would look like. The working title for the game was Sonic Rangers, and it morphed into Sonic Frontiers. The only issue was that we had to wait a whole year, and on November 8th, this game was finally available to play on my brand new PlayStation 5, and I was ready to go. In Sonic Frontiers, Sonic, Amy, and Tails are exploring the Starfall Islands to investigate the disappearance of the Chaos Emeralds. Out of nowhere, they are sucked into a wormhole and thrown into an unknown dimension. Sonic lands on the other side in one piece, but Amy, Tails, and later you find Knuckles are trapped between the cyberspace and the physical world. To restore his friends to their stable physical state, Sonic has to explore and speed through 4 unique islands, fight titans, and collect memory tokens. Alright, first impressions, here we go. The game is beautiful. This is the first open world Sonic game. Over the years, Sonic has had multiple different playstyles. In his Genesis, he was a classic side-scroller character. He was able to build and keep momentum through springs, loop-de-loops, and other bumpers. Games like Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic CD have this game style. Now, when he transferred over to 3D in the mid-90s, Sega implemented the beloved adventure game style, seen in Sonic Adventure 2, and Sonic 06. In 2008 Sonic Unleashed, Sega began to mainstream the boost formula, and that would continue for Sonic Colors, Sonic Generations, and Sonic Forces. Basically, if you collect enough rings, Sonic can boost forward and destroy enemies in his path with the boost. The level designs during the boost era were linear and fast-paced. In Sonic Unleashed in particular, Sonic felt like an out-of-control Ferrari on a racetrack. Colors and Generations made that racetrack a bit tighter while putting in more platforming, but by the time we got to Sonic Forces, the track felt pretty confined. The criticisms of the boost formula was that it was a boost to win strategy and it took away all the skills of platforming in order to be good at the games. In my opinion, that really wasn't a huge problem until Sonic Forces, but I get the criticisms overall. Sonic Frontiers removes the racetrack and takes you on a wild off-roading adventure. There's still a bit of the boost formula going on, but it's very much so nerfed. You can't bulldoze enemies with the boost anymore, but it still gives the player that rush of speed we've come to know and love from the Sonic franchise. You explore 4 different islands that are covered in grinding rails, balloons, bumpers, speed ramps, and other Sonic gimmicks that encourage you to explore the world. There are towers to climb, tokens to pick up and increase your speed and attack strength, and of course, large titans to duke it out with. There is also an ancient race of rock people called Coco. Kinda reminded me of the Chow in adventure games. This is a huge playground, and there's a lot for Sonic to do. The objective of every island is to collect the 7 Chaos Emeralds that are enclosed and become Super Sonic to defeat the island's titan. How do you get Chaos Emeralds? Well, it starts by collecting memory tokens for your friends to restore them, which ends up leading you to fight different mini-titans and grab tokens to open portals. The portals go to an area called Cyberspace, which is a return to the Unleashed and Colors formula games. Basic fast-paced platforming that gives you callbacks to classic stages like Green Hill Zone and Sky Sanctuary. Beating the objectives of these cyberspace levels, which ranges from time challenges, ring counts, and collecting red tokens, gives you keys, and those keys unlock Chaos Emeralds. Kind of a roundabout way to get them, but it's fun all the same. This encourages massive exploration, so you can see every bit of what the island has to offer. One of the most improved aspects of Sonic Frontiers that I hope the franchise continues going forward is the addition of new combat moves for Sonic. As you level up, you get more in your move set. For a while, the main attack moves for Sonic was just the spin dash and the homing attack, but now Sonic has additional combos and additional attacks to go with the spin dash and homing attack. He has moves like the Cyclone, Recover Spin Dash, Wild Dash, Sonic Boom, and other additions that make the fights actually engaging. The Cyclone in particular does a little bit more than than just attack your enemies. If you go in a circle, you can actually defeat bad guys and break their shells. You can also create rings for yourself. So now you don't have to wait to go somewhere to find rings. You can actually just create rings with the Cyclone, which is pretty interesting. Another interesting gimmick that Frontiers has added is the checkpoint system. To get more access to parts of the island, the game has you complete certain puzzles, mind games, and at one point even pinball. Now the pinball is a callback to one of the adventure games, which I absolutely love, and all these different activities help to break up that high-speed action. Of course, this is a Sonic game. We can't just talk about gameplay when it comes to Sonic games. We have to talk about story, voice actors, score, and music. Now the story is certainly one of the more convoluted stories that Sonic Team has told in a while. Legendary Sonic writer Ian Flynn wrote the story for Frontiers, and he is also consultant in Sonic Prime. The story is decent and the dialogue is much improved. One of the main complaints of the Sonic franchise, starting with Sonic Colors, was that the dialogue felt too much like a bad Saturday morning cartoon. The characteristics of the characters felt off, and the stories were rarely interesting, especially in Sonic Lost World and Forces. This story isn't the best Sonic ever, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. Sometimes it does get too convoluted, especially when they include the backstory about the Coco, but overall, it's a good step. New character Sage starts off pretty interesting, but she doesn't really add anything by the middle of the game. She just gives you vague warnings, confusing dialogue, and the reveal at the end that Eggman and her have a somewhat father and daughter relationship just seemed odd and out of place. But where this writing truly shines is with the interactions with Sonic and friends, particularly Tails and Knuckles. Tails struggles with self-worth and finding his own identity. Sonic fans online have discussed for years how uneven the writing is with Miles Tails' Prower. In Sonic Adventure back in 1998, Tails realizes that he relies too much on Sonic and he needed to be his own man. In recent years, that arc has been completely destroyed by Tails in every video game since, once again relying on Sonic and not really picking himself up and saving himself. He actually mentions this in this game, that he is wildly inconsistent.
Then I'm wildly inconsistent.
He decides he needs to go on a bit of a solo venture once he's back to normal so he can truly be his own guy.
Yeah, this whole experience gave me a kind of clarity. When this is all over, I think I need to go it alone for a while.
Maybe that's hinting to a Tails solo game coming up, which would be pretty interesting to see the franchise branch off in that way. The Knuckles and Sonic brotherhood / rivalry is also very clearly illustrated in this game. They reflect on their relationship and the journey that they've had since meeting at Angel Island all those years way back in Sonic 3. It's clear that they've evolved so much since then, and it's nice to have that acknowledged in this game. The main voice cast here did very well. This is by far Roger Craig Smith's best performance as Sonic the Hedgehog. I've always been a Jason Griffith guy, and in my opinion, Griffith's performance in Sonic Unleashed is the best Sonic yet.
Sonic's the name, speed's my game.
But Roger comes very close in this game. He's actually rather enjoyable, instead of annoying and grating, particularly in Colors and Lost World.
Oh man, that's just begging to be climbed. Imagine the view.
This is the first game where he feels effortlessly cool instead of a tryhard. The new and improved dialogue from Flynn particularly helped him. As far as everyone else goes, Colleen O'Shaughnessy's Tails, Sydney Robinson's Amy, and Dave Mitchell's Knuckles all gave strong performances. Probably the most mature versions of these characters to date. Mike Pollock, who voices Eggman, is the most tenured cast member in this cast. This version of Dr. Robotnik is much more restrained version of Eggman. Kind of stiff actually at times. It reminded me of his performance back in Sonic 06. I didn't really love it, but everyone has a bad day at the office. Beyond that, everything here is pretty solid. Of course, this is a Sonic game. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the soundtrack for this game. Sonic is kind of famous and popular for having absolute bangers for his soundtracks. They usually bring in marquee talent in the punk rock arena to give Sonic music life. My favorite in years past was Endless Possibilities in Sonic Unleashed, sung by Bowling for Soup's Jared Reddick. Tomoya Otini was the lead composer and sound director for Frontiers. He enlisted multiple rock acts to give Sonic his edge. This time, punk rock screamo singer Kelly Quinn, frontman for Sleeping with Sirens, lent his vocals to 3 different songs on this game. I'm Here is the main theme, and that is sung by Mary Kirk Holmes of the Australian metal band 2 Octavia. The main score for the levels give a mystic and airy feel, encouraging the exploration in the game. And when you go to cyberspace, I appreciated that instead of giving the old school music that these zones are inspired by, we get some new dubstep and electro tunes to keep up the mystic and cyber feel of everything. Great soundtrack, comparable to what came before. So, what's the verdict. Sonic is a guy that I have grown up. Sonic 3 was the first Sonic game I ever played. Sonic Adventure 2 was the game that I discovered in middle school. Sonic Elise was the first Sonic game I couldn't wait to have come out, and I counted down the days until that game was released. Sonic Frontiers is the perfect Sonic game for me now. It's a perfect mix of classic Sonic during the cyberspace levels, modern Sonic boost mechanics, and new open world exploration. The story and characters feel more mature. There are callbacks to other games by those characters. It's not just a progression for Sonic, but it's also a progression for its characters. I give this game a 10 shields out of 10 shields. Absolutely perfect. Provided me everything I ever could have wanted in a modern Sonic game. This game was enough to please fans and finally silence the naysayers that wanted Sonic to hang up his cleats. 31 years later, this guy can still go fast, and I look forward to exploring new frontiers in the years to come. Thanks for watching Knights of the Nerds Table. What are your thoughts on the game? What's your favorite Sonic game of all time? Would love to hear your thoughts. Once again, night out, and I hope you have a great holiday season.